Welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast designed to bring purpose to the broken through the words of our testimonies. Our prayer is to bring forgiveness, healing, and deliverance to others through the power of our testimonies and God's Word. It's time to raise up beautifully broken women who can live in His goodness daily, break generational curses, and live out His purpose for their lives. And I'm your host, Stephanie Bullock. Now let's dig in. Elizabeth, I'm so ecstatic that you are here. We've rescheduled this how many times?
Maybe twice.
Twice, maybe? Yeah.
Yep.
And every time that I would text you up to this day, I was like, she's going to cancel again. She's going to cancel again. But I'm so glad that you made the drive over from God's country, Hattiesburg.
Yep.
I appreciate you coming over because I gave you the option to do Zoom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to be here.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad you are because we haven't seen each other in person for how many years? Or do we even want to tell that?
Plus years, probably.
Yeah.
Been a while.
Yeah. So we met in college.
Right. Yep.
And
in God's country.
In God's country at God's University.
Right.
And I don't really remember those details. You were the one that really remembered those details and reached out to me so many years ago. So I'm going to let you tell how we know each other.
Oh no! If it was so many years ago, that was one baby or two babies ago that I probably don't remember now. I just remember being on campus, and I pledged a year after the people who were my age, and so when I got to campus, it was just still looking around at people who you think have it all together. And I remember your beautiful eyes and eyelashes, which you still have, and your smile. And just how welcoming and friendly you were, because I went through recruitment, and so I remember the faces I saw. You know, I studied those faces to see, like, can I be around these people? Am I like these people? Do I fit in with these people? And trying to feel comfortable in a new environment. And just, I don't think that anyone could ever see you when you weren't smiling.
Oh.
So you just had that natural way of making someone feel welcome.
Well, thank you. So you went through after I was already in.
I think so. Probably.
Okay. So I pledged in 96.
Yep.
So you went through in 97?
I went through in 99, actually.
Really?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. So that was my senior year.
Yep.
Okay. And it's funny that you called it recruitment because I still say rush.
Yes.
So you must be involved.
I was. So I did become an advisor to my sorority, which I did unbrainwash myself with the language and learn to say recruitment.
Okay, being all politically correct.
Yep.
We did not wind up pledging the same sorority.
Nope. But we would have ridden the same elevator back in the Panhellenic days.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. So, but the great thing about Greek life at Southern Miss, and back then, I assume it's the same now. I really don't know if the houses kind of changed things, but we didn't have houses back then. We all lived in the same dorm together, or residence hall. I'm not going to be politically correct. And so it was kind of like we were all just one big family, even though we were in different sororities, pledged different and believed different things and had different philanthropies. We all had the same mission, and that was always really cool. Greek life was very unique at Southern Miss then. I hope it still is, but we all got along regardless.
Yep. And I think, were you on Southern Style?
Yes.
I think you were probably that year when I came through.
I was.
And so I think that was probably why I had a first impression of you like that.
Oh, yes, I was. I was on Southern Style my senior year as well. That was a great group of kids, too. So that's pretty cool. So we reconnected on Facebook.
Yep.
And we really reconnected prior to where you are today. So how many years ago was that? Because you weren't married, didn't have any kids.
I really have no idea. Like,
How long have you
just
been
turned
married?
45 and it's a blur now. So I got married when I was 39. So
Okay.
I've been married 6 years now. And
So about 8 years ago, we reconnected.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
That's about right.
Man. And it's taken this long for us to get together.
Well, and I think, going through when you meet people at different times of your life, how you met them or how you connect with them or reconnect with them gets so blurry.
It does.
Because it's just, I mean, my gosh, college was 25 years ago. So it's long. You've been in my life in some capacity longer than you weren't.
Yes. Oh, I hadn't thought about it like that.
Yep.
That's crazy. Well, I'm glad that we reconnected, and I think that from what little bit I know about your story, it's unique, and it has it is not the common story, and I think that that is good in a way because it is going to reach some people that maybe feel alone and feel like that there's nobody out there that can relate to them. And I believe that you're going to bring some light to that. So, so I know that you are married and you have children now. I don't know if you want to, do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to leave that at the end, or how
Well,
do you?
I don't mind going backwards because what I was thinking, you said there are just some things you don't know, and
Yeah.
maybe my story's different. And I think that when we keep our stories to ourselves, we do feel like they're different. And I think as we start to share them, we realize how universal they are.
Correct.
And so the more I have been vocal about my shortcomings, my depression, my anxiety, my shame, the more I realize how alike we all are.
Yep. Yep.
So I actually was married previously. I married a guy we went to college with, and that was right after law school for me. And there was nothing, no big blow up, nothing really wrong, but we did get divorced. And so that for me led into a whole new season of, am I good enough? Am I worthy? Now I'm divorced. That's a sin. That's, is God going to punish me? Am I lovable? Am I ever going to have the one? And that sort of, so a lot of what has happened in my life, starting with, I guess, age 36, 37, came from that place.
Okay.
That place of just unworthy, unlovable, undeserving. So that's the foundation, I guess.
Okay. Okay. So you currently are married,
Currently, yes.
and you have too many. I mean, too many.
I know.
How many
Well, I do
children?
say-
Not too many children.
I do say sometimes it's like 100. I have 3 children now.
Okay.
And so let me go back and say this. Whenever I was divorced, and I had a law degree, I didn't want children during that stage of my life because, I had to pay off student loans. I had to
Girl.
kind of get my feet under me, establish myself professionally. And I always wanted to be a mother. I mean, I couldn't have told you really what I wanted to accomplish professionally, but I knew I'd be a mom. And so heading into age 36 without children, I really, really, I just remember the ugly cries. I remember specifically, specific events where I just would cry out feeling like God had forgotten me. And then thinking, but it's my fault. I asked for this. I got divorced. This is all my fault. You're never going to have children. This is, and thinking I knew the character of God, that I knew that, God is a father who punishes, and God is a father who wants to keep us on the right course. And that was my image of a father. I didn't grow up with a dad. So I didn't really know what a loving father was.
Right.
My dad died when I was 3. And so that led to a lot of just that innate desire that I think girls, women have to feel loved. For whatever reason, there's just a huge bond or innate need for girls to have love from their fathers.
Yes. Yes.
And I see it all the time in my work now, but I really learned how important it was then, and how much it affects our lives. My father died suddenly in a plane crash. He didn't choose to leave me, but I had that abandonment issue as if he had. And I really felt like no one was ever going to love me. So I wanted to be a mom, and I really took advantage of the long drives that I had in my work. I work typically a 5-county district. And so some drives, usually they were the drives to Marion County, I just would talk to God.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the quiet prayers. It wasn't the prayers when you're falling asleep. It was verbally out loud. And tell me what to do. Either give me this or give me that, but show me, like, give me the blinking lights and the neon signs, because I don't know what's next, and I'm floundering.
Yep. I'm the same way. I'm a why, God and I have literal like conversations just like this. I have an hour drive to work one way, hour drive back. And literally I will have conversations just like this with God. And sometimes they're nice conversations and sometimes they're not.
Yep.
And I'm asking why. And I'm like, I need the signs. Like, God, you have to write it in black and white. I have to know for sure. And then I flip flop back and forth with that because I'm like, well, then is that really faith?
Yeah. Yep.
That's a whole nother story. So I can relate to that greatly.
Well, and that's kind of what I have to recognize that God knows me and my character and my personality to say that a lot of my conversations were I was telling God because they are. I mean, I'm saying, okay, God, I'm having a conversation with God like I am, my child telling him what to do, but I have to understand God knows my personality
Yep.
and knows that when I'm saying, okay, God, look, this is what I need from you, but I'm a worker bee. So here's what I'm going to do, but this is where I need you to step in.
Yeah.
And
We're telling God what to do.
Right,
Like
right.
like he needs us to. Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm. But it was like, okay, as I think too, as a female or as a woman, you have trouble asking for help, even sometimes from God.
Yeah.
So to say like, I can't do this on my own was really hard. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, I want a family. And, in one of these days, I mean, things just started to unfold. I just started having conversations with people. Things would come up about adoption, and I had always wanted to be an adopted parent. I just, it was on my timeline. It was the way I had planned it. And I did not think it was going to be when I was single, that it would be my first experience as a parent. But I drove to Marion County one day. It was actually around President's Day of 2016. And I overheard a conversation about an adoption situation. And it was from a context, normally attorneys are not involved representing the birth parent. Anyway, the lawyers, judges, some people were talking about it. And I kind of just poked my head in, and one of the attorneys said, why do you want the baby? And I just kind of froze, and I mean, yeah, but I don't. And he said, well, if you do, let us know because, these are the kind of things that are happening and falling through or whatever. And so that ride home from Marion County.
Oh, my goodness.
That was when I talked to God and said, okay, God, this is what I want. And this is what I want. But if I do anything, I'm not going to know whether this is you or this is me. I'm going to take charge. Let me make the magic happen kind of person. But I can't do that. If this is your will, then great. But this has to be your idea because if it's my idea, I'm going to mess it up.
Yeah, right.
And we had that conversation. Like, I just felt like God was saying, then just be still. And that was a hard response, for me. And so I did, and that was on a Friday afternoon. That Monday was President's Day holiday. I was bowling, and I got a phone call that their plan A and plan B had fallen apart, and they wanted to know if I wanted this baby. And I said, okay, God, if I wanted you to show me it was you. And I placed a few phone calls and said, okay, yes, I'll say yes. And I immediately panicked a little bit, but I also realized my life is only my life when there's something crazy going on. And I just had a lot of conversations about, so what do I do next? And at that stage, I sought wisdom and discernment and got into the Word and into my prayers with God in a way that was different for me. I'm a talker, and I had to really listen. And so I would talk out loud, and I would really have a conversation about where this needed to go. And I was headed to meet that birth mother later on that week. I had to drive from Raleigh back to Hattiesburg, and I got a phone call that she was going in a different direction. So in just a few days, that whirlwind happened.
Wow.
And that fell through. But in that process, I really saw that God was saying, I am calling you to this. This isn't you searching it. This is
preparing you.
This is me calling you to it.
Yeah.
And so my prayers deepened. I was really confused. If you're going to call me to this, then why block it at that point?
Yep.
And I also was really surprised that even though I was kind of taking this leap of faith, I had such peace about it. And so when it fell through, I wasn't grieving the child I didn't get to adopt. I was grieving that sense of peace I had moving forward in that direction. And so I knew at that point God was calling me to say yes. And I just didn't know what all that would be saying yes to at that point, you know? But I knew I was supposed to say yes.
Okay.
And so that was the first situation that led me towards adoption. And I'll just keep going on and on and on. So you interrupt me when you.
Oh no,
need me.
this is great. No,
Okay.
you go ahead.
So, and this is also what the book I'm gonna write one day. So it's good to say it all.
Yeah.
That fell through, and there's some other situations happened. Once people knew that I was willing to do that, things just started happening, and I knew God wanted me to say yes, so I would. And then one crazy thing after another would happen. In one situation, I said yes. Apparently, this woman was basically just trying to broker out this baby. It was a crazy situation. That fell through in a way that the mother now is raising her daughter herself and is a good friend of mine, and I get to be around that child.
Oh wow.
Actually, several years later, I met the adoptive family of that first baby, and we ended up being in a foster parenting adoption group together.
Wow.
And kind of put the pieces together, and I still get to see that child grow up,
Oh, wow.
through social media and see their family. Let's see. So there was two others that fell through.
Oh my goodness.
But in each of those, God has given me the beauty of seeing his hand on the other side of those. And I know we're not always entitled to that.
That's right.
But I've gotten to be a part of their stories in different ways. Legally, one of the children I later helped to get to a family member of his. So God was just, those seeds were planted. They just weren't for my baby.
Now, so what made you want to be an adoptive parent to begin with?
Adoption was just normal in my home. One of my siblings is adopted. My parents did not think they could have children for many years. My mom was actually on television and when she adopted. And so
What do you mean on television?
So my mother was the host of Midday in Hattiesburg
Okay.
at WDAM for many years.
Really?
Until I was born. But so she was a public figure and was going through the process of adoption. And so he was prior to me. So when I was born, I had a brother. Later, my mother had another child. So there's three of us. But, my brother, however he came to be my brother, he was there first. He's all I know.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how he
Yeah.
was just my brother.
He's just your brother.
He's my
It's
brother.
not like you were there and then they adopted him in. Yeah.
And it was
makes
so
no difference
normal.
to you. Yeah.
And that was just my experience. And his adoption was totally open. And so his family became a part of our family. And so it is not a common situation, but his cousins became my cousins and mine his. And
Yeah.
anyway, so that was normal to me. I threw around the word adoption, in second grade, and people would kind of look at me because I didn't know what it was. But to me, that was normal. So
Yeah.
I knew that was I loved children. I wanted a big family. And so a lot of people said, why not foster care? And I said, absolutely not. That is for people more faithful than I am. That is for people stronger than I am, braver than for families, somebody who has a support system, a married couple. That is not for somebody like me. And
Have you
then
eaten those words?
I've eaten those words so fully and completely, and then advised others to do the same. But God just doesn't stop whenever he has something for you, and he doesn't knock you over the head, and he just quietly sends these people or these stories to just work on your heart and
Puts all the pieces together.
puts all the pieces
And then you're
together
sitting
at the
back
perfect
going,
time.
Oh my gosh, I see what you did.
Yep.
I see what you did.
Yep. And just it's like a carrot that would dangle me
Yep.
along the way. Even if it was misinformation, it just got me to the right place.
Yep.
And I look back to it like being my first year of law school and thinking, why am I here? I don't want to be in law school. My father was an attorney. He died when I was little. Going to law school gave me a way to know him, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with children. And I kept thinking, I could have been a teacher, you know, but now I'm a year into student loans and I'll just finish this thing out. And, but I started to see, God lay that groundwork so far ahead of time that the people I met and the people I was around were able to really direct me towards foster care. I gotta get a break. I'm gonna sound like
You're fine. Sound like a frog.
I've been sick for like a month.
Oh my goodness.
So a friend, an attorney friend, had been a foster parent, and she said, well, you can do just hospital surrenders. Babies are born all the time, and the hospital, the mothers may leave them at the hospital. So I said, well, I'll just do that. And I learned at that point you could not just do that. So then I'm thinking, does God want me to have an older child? Or I didn't know. I had no clue. And I'd been involved in very few adoptions through foster care at that point. And I knew nothing. I was as blind as anyone else going into it. And let's see, I filled out an application. They lost it or threw it away or something. And then I went through the process again. No one from CPS showed up for our orientation. And the more things kind of worked against me, the more determined I got to do it. Like, I'm that type,
But God knew that.
Well, then he did a great job because it was like every time something would go wrong, I would say, this system is so messed up. I've got to get in there and fix it. But
I knew that early on, too. I was like, she's a fixer. I can tell.
Yes. Yeah. And I couldn't let that beat me. So I did the orientation, I did the classes, and they sent me the home study packet. And I threw it on the the foyer table, and I just said, I'm not doing this. This is dumb. I don't know why you've called me to this. This is a bad idea. It just, I got close to that finish line, and it freaked me out. I got scared.
Right, sure.
And so CPS they are overworked, and they are overstaffed, and they are underpaid. And a lot of them are amazing workers. And another, godsend was this worker who called and said, we sent you a foster packet. We haven't received anything back. Well, they don't, CPS is very much divided. You've got the licensure part over here, people who work with the foster children here, work with adoption here. They don't really communicate that much either. So how this happened, I have no idea. But
sounds like other state agencies.
It's very much a state agency pattern.
We will let go unnamed.
Yes. Well, there's probably several. But she called and said, well, we haven't received it back. And I said, I know, I'm not going to do it. This is stupid. And she said, well, what if you just let me come to your house? I'll come on Monday, and you can be filling it out, and we'll just go ahead and I'll just start it. And I said, that's fine. You can come. I'm not baking cookies. I'm not cleaning up. I had a bookcase that had a glass door, and it was broken. So it had like jagged glass, and I thought, okay, God, I'll let them come, but they're not going to be able to license me. I'm going to have literally just safety hazards all around my house. And she showed up, and she looked around. I think I still had my Christmas tree up. Like, it was into January.
I still had mine up around the end of
I think it was actually even half a Christmas. I don't even know. I mean, I was single. It didn't matter. I had no one to decorate for anyway. And she came in, and she was so sweet, and she looked around my house, and she went to the back guest bedroom, and she said, do you have any idea what you want? And I was like, what? Like,
what do you mean?
Yeah, like a puppy? Like, what do you mean? Like, do I get a
blonde hair, blue-eyed? Like,
right.
What do you mean?
Is this like weird science? You get to pick it? And she said, well, no, like a boy or girl. Do you have a preference? And I said, no, I don't think you understand. I just want whatever God has for me. I'm blind faith. She said, well, I just feel like there's supposed to be a little boy in this room. And we were just standing outside the room. And I said,
she sounds like a believer.
She is. And she said, and I said, that's funny because a friend and I said the same thing this week. And it was just it was a taupe walls, neutral guest room. And so at the time, we just kind of walked around, and she did part of the home study, and she said, well, see, she called me on a Monday. So she came on a Wednesday. And she said, well, we have this process now. And I don't like it, but the way we do it is we kind of give like a score, a 1 to 5 score. And because you have a history of trauma, because you have depression and anxiety, you're on medication, you're a 3. And she told me that like to caution me, like it was going to hurt my feelings. And I said, you don't understand. I want what God has for me. And if I'm a 3, then there's some 3 baby out there that God has just for me. Because I'm not, this isn't like an application. I just really want the job.
Right.
I'm just, God sent me and I'm here.
Yep.
And so
you're being a willing vessel.
you just, whatever I am is what God needs me to be.
Wow.
And so that was on Wednesday. And she said, well, I'm on special assignment. Normally this process takes about 3 months. But good news, we could probably do it in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
And I panicked. And I thought, you talked me into just coming to my house. Now you're here. Now you're telling me it's going to be 6 weeks. And I said, okay, well, whatever. And that was on Wednesday. And that Friday, I got a phone call around noon. And it was actually 12:01. And the girl who was working for me said that she had another attorney on the phone calling something about a baby. And I thought it was a trick because it was another attorney. And I thought she needs me to call her back for something else. And like, she just wants to get me on the phone. And so I said, just take a message. I don't even take a message. So I texted someone else and I was like, is she really with you? Because she called and said so-and-so. She said, yes, call her right back. So I went and got someone else in the office building to stand there with me and listen on speakerphone as I got the information because everything in me said my life was going to change. And so it was like an out-of-body experience because I knew I wasn't going to retain everything. So she's sitting there with me and she's saying, ask this question and ask that question. And I'm thinking, just shut up. I need to hear what they're trying to tell me. And so they call me and they say they have this little girl and this little baby girl. And I thought, oh, well then that's not my baby because I knew I had that same feeling that my baby was a boy. And so they're telling me about this little girl and she had been in the hospital. She had been in UMC. They suspected child abuse. And in the background, I hear someone say, it's a little boy. It's a little boy. His name is Matthew, and it means a gift from God. And I just start bawling.
Oh, my goodness.
And we asked if, does this little boy come with a car seat? Like, what do we do when someone says, hey, I have a baby? And we asked all these questions, and I don't even remember the answers. What do we feed it? She's just, can you meet us in an hour? And I said, yeah, just tell me where to meet you.
This is 2 days after.
This was 2 days after. Yep.
Visit. Not 6 weeks, not 6 months. Okay.
It was 2 days. And so I went to meet them. And on the way, I called and said, I called that worker and said, I don't know who I need to report this to, but I have a baby. She said, who gave you a baby? And I told her what had happened. And she said, okay, well, I'll put in the paperwork.
So wait a minute. So the call from the lawyer had nothing to do with CPS.
So it did. So what happened was on this day in this county, more than one child had come into custody.
Okay.
And they did not have any other foster parents. And this baby had such severe injuries that they knew that it would take someone who would have the time to go back and forth to doctor's appointments, travel back and forth to Jackson.
Okay.
And they knew that I was in the process of being licensed.
Okay.
And so they knew that they could court order that placement pending my licensure.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that is what they did. And on Friday, February 3rd of 2017, I had a baby in my home.
Wow.
So that was the day I became a mom. It was not official. It was not in writing. It was, I didn't have showers and anything. I had nothing. And it could not have been more perfect for somebody like me, who's a planner, needs to know all the answers. And God just said, you have an hour, you show up, and that is surrender.
Yeah, and faith.
It is. And it's, all the things of I'm single. How am I going to date? Who's going to want me? How do I incorporate this into the things I really thought that I wanted
Yeah.
for my life? This is going to change so much, my career.
Yeah.
How am I going to build a business? How am I going to be an attorney and be in court all day? And just all the things that we feel like we need answered.
Yep.
That didn't matter one bit. I didn't have, it was crazy. And I called people, and by the time I got back from picking him up, well, actually, my mom was out of town. So I called her and said, where will you be about 5? And she said, what do you have? And I said, a baby. And she said, I'll be there. She was in Oxford with my brother. And she hit the road. And she came in, people came to my house. I left the front door open, and people just showed up with stuff.
Wow.
And I had, car seat and stroller and toys and blankets, and somebody came over. Somebody had given me a bed. Somebody came over and put it together.
Oh, my.
Draft laundry detergent. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
Brought that stuff over. And people just showed up, and I left my door unlocked, and we just kind of waited for the next adventure, I guess. It just, that was the day everything changed.
So that was the day everything changed.
That was the day everything changed.
Yep.
Kind of like, I don't want to say faith became sight, but
Yeah.
there was so much blind faith and kind of thinking I was crazy and telling God he was crazy. And that night I did question my sanity. And it took, I remember 24 hours later thinking, I'm never going to be able to give this baby back. What have I done? So
This was a foster situation.
it was a foster situation. And I don't know if he had been my second placement or third placement, or if the circumstances had been different, if I would have felt any different. But from that moment, he was my son.
Yeah.
I knew very little about his medical situation. On Monday, we went to a doctor in Jackson, Mississippi, has one forensic pediatrician, and he looks at anything that might be criminal related, so child abuse.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
There is, and he's at UMC, and he really is partially responsible for saving my son's life. My son would have been discharged directly home to his family. A call came into CPS at the same time. My child's guardian ad litem, who was appointed for him in court, called and also reported some things and said this doesn't add up. So they stopped him from being discharged from UMC and got him someplace safe for that first night and got him to me. So in looking back, the day that CPS called me and said, hey, we really need to get you licensed, was the day my son went into hospital. So, of course, unbeknownst to me,
Wow.
the times when I ugly cried, because in my mind, 36 was my cutoff. If I'm not pregnant by 36, if I'm not having a baby by 36, that's just never going to happen for me. And I've laughed because I thought, with adoption, God backdates, So I wasn't pregnant at 36.
True.
But God had my timeline.
Yep.
I just didn't know it was in the works.
Yep.
So on Monday, I learned the severity of my son's injuries. And having been a prosecutor of child abuse cases in the past, I knew, one, that we didn't know if he'd walk, we didn't know if he'd talk, we didn't know what his long-term effects would be. He had brain injuries, he had broken bones, and really, we didn't even learn all that at the same time. It was like we'd get one phone call after the next, and you think you have this healthy baby, and then they say, oh, by the way, his arms are broken. You're thinking, I've been playing with him.
Wow.
I've been, okay. And so the doctor said, you've worked these cases before. You know how hard they are to prove. It's very likely he could go back home, because with child abuse of an infant, you don't know when it occurred. You don't know who did it.
Yeah. You
don't know what county they were in. If they're staying in Forest County with grandma, but they live in Lamar County, where did it happen? Who did it? So my prayers became, let his injuries be, let them heal, but let them be so clear that it's clear it's child abuse, and let the person who's responsible be held culpable. And so those were my prayers. And each step, God, I would get a referral to a doctor who would say, now look, now normally this is what we do, but I'm going to go in and do all these things just to make sure, let's schedule this at the same time we schedule that. So while he's getting his MRI, we can do this eye exam, and just
Wow.
going before me.
Yeah.
And I remember telling God again, okay, God, you brought me here, and I can care for him, and I can provide for him. But this is going to take a community of people. It can't just be me.
Right.
I'm going to need people along the way to
Yep.
remind him of his worth and his value. And what am I going to need educationally? What am I going to need spiritually for him? And I prayed so fervently for the right people.
Yeah.
And the neurologist was amazing, and she's a friend to this day. Eye doctor is his eye doctor to this day. And the teachers God's given us have been amazing. But that's skipping ahead many, many years. So as it turned out, the perpetrator did admit the abuse. And ultimately, his birth mother did ask if I would adopt him.
Wow.
I don't know legally what would have happened had she not. I do know that based on the damage, the severity of his injuries, the court was planning to terminate parental rights anyway.
Okay.
His biological mother did not have any part in his abuse.
Okay.
But there were a lot of people who knew it was happening and did not intervene. And as much as I hate what happened to him, and that will be my question when I get to heaven, why did he have to go through this to be my son? I know that event saved his life.
Right.
Had it not happened the way it did, I think it would have continued and he'd have a different outcome.
Yep.
But the night that he went to the hospital, his family took him to the emergency room in the county they lived in. And the nurses did not think that he would make it to UMC. They life flighted him.
Wow.
And they gathered around and held hands and they prayed for him.
Oh, wow.
And so one of the nurses told her daughter about the baby that came in, and they gave the family money to get to Jackson and prayed for him.
Wow.
And years later, my friend was telling her mother about my adoption, and that mother, they put it together that was the baby that she had prayed for, and
Oh, wow.
all these years they'd been talking about,
I love it when
that
God
story.
reveals, like, the end.
Right. And we have no right to that.
No,
like,
we
I
don't.
He never has to show us that. And he just, to think I can now thank someone who prayed over him that first night when I wasn't there. And so not only did he make it, I mean, he's in gifted classes, and he is very intelligent.
And hopefully he was young enough that he doesn't remember.
So there's a great book, I think The Body Keeps the Score, about how the brain, trauma affects your brain, whether you remember it consciously or not. And so we've spent a lot of time in play therapy. He has feelings he doesn't understand why he has. And I think we all, to some extent, do, we just, as we're older, have the ability to look back and say, oh, I know what caused that. And you can talk through it, or you can get there. He doesn't know how to get there. And so there's a lot that, one day I'll have to tell him he knows he's adopted. Adoption, again, in our family is a normal word.
He does know that already?
He does
Okay.
know.
Okay.
And we've talked about he has a different tummy mommy, but it's still hard to process.
Tummy mommy.
So, yeah, I use tummy mommy.
I love that.
So
So
in
he
all that,
subconsciously is dealing with it, but doesn't understand necessarily what it is.
Yes.
He doesn't have visual memories like you and I do of certain things, but he does have, which may be worse, what he has. He has these emotions that he doesn't understand where they're coming from.
I've learned a lot.
Wow.
I used to be like so many others, kind of, the keyboard warriors on the internet about take all the kids away from their parents and we could do a better job and it's horrible. But there is a natural bond between parent and child. No matter how inadequate a person's parenting may be, there is a bond. And I respect that bond. I'm in communication with his mother.
Okay.
She has sense. She has a family and she's a believer now. there were times when she would contact me and say, "You're the only Christian I know. Like, help me through this situation."
Wow.
And I've just told her, when it is right, I promise you. And she's trusted me with that. It's been hard. You know, we've had behavioral issues and night terrors and just different things we've had to navigate where it wasn't the right time, but we'll get there. So we worked through his brain injury. He developed normally, and lo and behold, I connected with somebody else I went to college with. And actually, I think he and I had gone out once in January of 2016, and I said, I want to be a foster parent. And he was like, let's just, we'll catch up every now and then. Like,
I'll call you.
yeah.
Don't call me.
Yep. And so we stayed friends for that year. And then actually a year to the day that I got Matthew, he and I went to a wedding together. And we've been together ever since.
Okay.
So I knew that God gave me Matthew. I didn't believe I would be able to have biological children. I thought God was giving me that gift so that I could be a parent, and
right.
it did. It took that longing away. It filled my heart. You know, I had spent so much time broken. Feeling broken, feeling damaged. The little girl who lost her dad, like it defined me. And I finally felt like adoption, and specifically my son, put those pieces back together for me. And so I felt whole and worthy. And I think that for me, if the story just ended right there, God gave me Matthew at a time when I least deserved him. You know, I was not in church every Sunday. I was finding ways to fill that void. I was social. I was friendly. I was having a lot of fun. And it was just, Matthew is not a gift I deserved. And I think that when we talk about redemption or why we have a Savior, it's because he knows we're those people. You know, and I always tell people, you know, he died knowing we were sinners. Like,
Correct.
It wasn't like he had these hopes and dreams for us that we were going to be perfect and blameless, and then we went and ruined it all. You know,
Right.
He knew the need for a Savior before we ever existed. And at that moment, my awareness of who God is totally changed. And learning, when I became a mother, I got to learn who the Father was. And
That's good.
I did. And
Wow.
he really used that stage of my life to show me how much a father loves a child. And how whenever we least deserve it, he still has the best gifts for us.
Yeah. Wow.
And like I said, I'm the neon sign blinking lights. I mean, his name means a gift from God.
Right. Did you need a bigger sign?
Right. And like they said it. Like I probably looked that up.
Right.
I would have never thought, let me go look and see what his name means. The first thing I learned about him.
It was God. That was God saying, hey.
It was the megaphone.
Yeah.
And so that's when I learned who God was.
Wow.
And opened myself up to what else God could have for me. And so then the past 6 years have been the fullest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, when you open yourself up to that surrender of seeing what God could have and letting go of the fear and all the restraints we put on ourselves. You know, all the who's going to date me, who's going to want me. My husband and I went out, and I mean, immediately he took me to meet his family, and I took my son, and, you know, his mother went to get some stuff for her grandson who would be born soon, and she brought stuff back for him. It was just immediate.
Yeah.
You know, it was instant that he was a child and they loved him.
Yeah.
It didn't matter that, you know, their son brought home this girl with a kid.
Right.
Or how, or any of that, you know. So anyway, but yeah, he became officially mine about a year later. And then my husband and I got married, and he adopted him as well. But
Oh, wow. I missed that.
yeah, so we, right before COVID, we got all that in there, thankfully. But yeah, I didn't think that that I would have any other children. And so, but when when I had Matthew and he was a baby, I would go through these late night delusional, sleep deprived conversations with God, and just as sure as I knew that Matthew would be a boy, I felt like God had a girl for me. And at one point, Matthew's birth mom got pregnant, and she told me, and I thought, so often in foster care, if you have a child, one of the children, and mom gets pregnant again, you may end up with that child. And it was a little boy, and I thought, I knew then she was going to be fine, he was going to be fine, and that wasn't for me. And so I just thought, though, that next child would be through adoption. And one point, my husband said, "Why are you staying licensed as a foster parent?" He said, at first you did it as a leap of faith, but now you're doing it as a lack of faith because you don't think that God is able to give you biological children. So you're holding on to that. Huh. And I thought, okay, well, you're right. That's exactly right. And so I let that go. My husband and I got married in March of 2019, and I was pregnant in April of 2019. And so in 2019, I ran for office, got married, and had a baby. Huh. All in the same year.
Wow.
Yep.
Right before the world fell apart.
Right before the world fell apart. Yep. So
Did you win that political office?
I did not. And it was the best blessing.
But it wouldn't have worked had you.
It would not have worked because
Had you won it, it wouldn't. Things would be different. Yeah, that's right.
And that year, I remember thinking, God calls us to the race. He didn't always call us to the outcome. So I prayed for God to expand my territory, and I ran for office. Very uncomfortable for me. Really stepping out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And pregnant. I mean, I didn't feel like I could even tell people I was pregnant. And, but right after that, COVID happened and things shut down, and I was self-employed, so I could be home with my family. Yep. I could be home with my newborn, and had it played out differently, I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And so I would have still had to go into court. And so everything worked out, just the way it should have. So let's see, that was 39. And then at 42, I had another one. So I had my babies 36, 39, and 42. So now I have an 8, 5, and a 2-year-old.
Nice. And you got your girl.
And I got my girl. So so I did. I got to circle back to that. So when I got pregnant, we did the whole, we did do a gender reveal for our families, but I needed to know, just us. And so we went and got...
You're so like me. I'm like, we can do a gender reveal, but I got to know.
I went and got cupcakes, and I gave the people the card, and they did the icing inside the cupcakes. We went home and did it. But I already knew. I knew when I got pregnant that it was a girl. And so, and I got my girl in spades. She is sassy and smart and bossy and stubborn and, all the things she'll need to be later in life.
You're looking at the mirror, huh?
Somewhat, but even my mom says she is. I was never that bad.
Oh, really?
So, yes, she's going to do great things one day.
She's going to be amazing. Yeah.
And she says she wants no tummy babies. She wants to adopt all her babies.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, we...
And then your third child is a boy?
My third child is a boy.
Yep.
So, there was just this feeling when I was 42 and thinking, I got to the party late. It's already over. I wasn't ready for it to be over. I had 2 children, but I'd only had that one pregnancy. And it was a rough pregnancy. And it was like I wanted a do-over. I can do it better next time. And
it is a little easier, typically, for the second time. And by the third time, you're just doing whatever you want to do.
It was, overall, I felt good pregnant. But
yes.
My first one was very high anxiety.
Well, you're adjusting. I mean, you have no idea what's going on. You have no idea what your body's doing. You don't know where these feelings are coming from, why you're sick all the time, or why you have a headache, or why you need to go to the restroom all the time. You're adjusting that first time. So it is a little different. But but yeah, I was like you. I mean, I felt good pregnant.
Yeah.
I was fine with being pregnant and even delivery. I had
Yeah.
easy deliveries, and it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was fun, but it wasn't a nightmare either. Of course, I had an epidural. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. This was not natural childbirth. It was natural, but with meds. Okay.
Yep.
Um, I would deliver, I would stay pregnant and deliver all day long, every day.
If you didn't have
You
to.
just take them, and when they're self-sufficient,
Yes.
give them back to me.
That's exactly the way I
Be
felt.
good. Like, I even there for a little bit, thought about surrogate motherhood.
Yep.
Like, I could be a surrogate mother for somebody. That'd be amazing.
Yep.
Have the baby, and hey, you take that thing.
The hardest stage
feed it
is
and change
definitely once they're born for me.
It was. It was. But yeah, pregnancy for me was pretty easy too. And I know not everybody experiences that. But yeah, but that second time you're like, I got this.
I think coming from a background of trauma, being pregnant was just, it's breeding grounds for fear. And I just, every time something would change, I had a lot of bleeding during my pregnancy, that first one.
Really?
So for the first like 19 weeks. And so
Wow.
I was constantly afraid that I was
Yeah, I
losing
would have been
her.
too.
And I was in the ER with my blood pressure over and over and over. We couldn't get the medication right. And so I always felt like, I mean, every doctor's appointment I prepared for
The worst.
no heartbeat. I prepared
Did
every
they know
time.
why?
For the longest time, no. And so they would come up with, well, it might be. And it was this horrible stuff. Like, you couldn't have just told me it's nothing like every other Google search. But there was a polyp. And so
okay.
once, I don't know how that works, but once the doctor found it, and when I delivered her, removed it.
Sure.
And so once they knew what was causing it, everything was fine. But the first half
Yeah, that would have been pretty scary.
was horrible.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was constantly searching for a heartbeat. And
I bet.
there's just that feeling, trauma early on in life, I guess, just like with my son's brain, my brain is constantly in fight or flight. And so I was just constantly preparing for the letdown. And, I will say in there, I did have a miscarriage in there. I forgot about that.
Oh, wow.
And that actually has changed a lot in many amazing ways for me. But
So in between the two children you have
did.
now, or?
I did.
Okay.
I did not know I was pregnant, and I think sat down one night, ate a whole pizza, and said, "I think I might should look into this." And was pregnant, and had to go through that experience. But again, I mean, God sent so many blessings and things through that experience just to remind me that He was there.
Yeah.
So anyway, God just has used, I look at these kids, and I try my hardest not to worship them. And my kids will say, it is hard. They'll say, well, what if something happens to me? And and it's like, the one thing I don't know if I can surrender is giving them back to God. And I say I do. I know they're on loan. I know they're just mine for a season, but that is the hardest thing to surrender.
It is. It is. So I don't know if you remember or not. And I remember you posting something about one of your children asking, what if something happens to me? You posted something about that on social media or TikTok or something.
Probably.
And that was pretty heart-wrenching. But I don't know if you remember or not, but this December will be 2 years ago, Addison had a wreck, my middle child. And it was a rollover wreck. He had traumatic brain injury. He was unconscious, but post-seizure by the time I got to him at the car. And we didn't know if he'd live or not. And we didn't know if he would live, what state he would be in, what his quality of life would be. We didn't know how bad the brain injury was. We didn't know any of that. And
the brain is an amazing part of the body, though.
It is. And God, He's fully restored. But that first, 12 hours or so, which seemed like, a minute, but that first 12 hours, we didn't know. And I just remember gut wrenching, screaming, crying, saying, "You can't take my son," over and over and over and over.
Yep.
And I just kept saying that outside the ER. And I had all my friends around me. They were laying hands on me, praying for me. And then I was yell, screaming, gut wrenching, crying, like, "You can't take my son. Please don't take my son. You can't take." And the whole time I'm subconsciously saying, "But he's God's son. He can. He's
Yep.
not yours."
Yep.
And, subconsciously it was like, "I know you can take him,
But please
but
don't.
please don't take him."
Yeah.
And God's not done with him yet. And
Yeah.
this isn't my story, so I'll move on. But it is, when it comes down to that moment where you don't have control and God could, it is heart wrenching. And I don't know how I would even answer a child's question like that. Like, what if something happens to me?
Well, and
I know
they
the spiritual answer, but
well, they know my dad died when I was little, and so they'll bring up things, well, if you were to die, and those are normal conversations I had too, and my husband's like, well, just make up something, tell him, and I say no,
be transparent.
we're going to talk about this, and even like my son will ask different things about adoption, and I've told him, I want you to ask me.
Yep.
I may have normal human reactions. I may be sad.
Yep.
Because what I didn't really, as an adoptive parent, it is a very constant reminder your child is not your own. Not only are they God's, but there's a woman out there who loves him as much as I do.
Yeah.
And I am very aware of that, but it threatens me a little. And so if she comes in, what if he likes her better? That sort of feeling
Normal.
threatened.
Yeah.
And I have to remember that also he has that sense of feeling threatened. What if I love them better? And so we have a great adoptive community. I mean, I sometimes wonder that if my biological children aren't going to feel different because most of our friends are adopted. I'm a huge part of the foster care community now. And I look back at the things in my life that, trauma has taken from me, but it has given me a lot. And so, talking about the fears of what happens, I was self-employed, and I don't say the breadwinner, but supporting my family. I mean, a large part of the roof over our head comes from a lot of what I do. And so when I had that miscarriage in 2021, I thought, if I lose it, and there's a good chance I will. I mean, I've struggled with depression, anxiety my whole life, and I didn't go into that. I mean, I spent 8th grade in the dark with the lights off, reading Job over and over, wanting to die. I have been in the pits and am terrified of my depression. And so I've had to build this business that protects my family from myself. If something happens to one of my children, I will not be well, and I will not be able to work.
I think that would be any mother, whether we battle depression
absolutely
or not. But I understand where you're going with that. That it could be.
I just don't know.
Substantially worse.
I don't know. I don't trust myself in that situation.
I've said many a times, and even when that accident happened, I was like, y'all are going to have to medicate me. Like, I don't know how I'm going to handle this. I get that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mothers are the strongest humans.
I believe that.
But our Achilles heel is our kids.
Absolutely.
And if you want to have me crumble, just, threaten to harm them.
Yes.
So, anyway, it's depression and the way that God has used so many things in my life to allow me to, feed that back into my work. As an attorney, I work with a lot of children, and now I work in the youth court and foster care system a lot. And one of the teens I worked with called me yesterday, and she said, here's what I'm going through, and they don't understand because they've never had anything happen to them. And she's telling me, this is someone who's been through 100 times more than I could ever imagine. And she's saying, I just need you to listen to me because I know you care about me, and I know you get it. And, my depression has allowed me to be on a level playing field with these teens who feel like no one gets them.
Oh, wow.
Or these children who feel like they have nothing. And I can say, I've been there. You know, I can go meet with clients when they were incarcerated and say, I don't know how you feel now, but I know this is how I felt then.
Yeah.
And I just see where it's opened my eyes to
Yep.
so much to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I had to get to a point where I would give a lot to have my dad back. But I don't know that I'd give anything. Because I don't know that I would trade who I am today. So selfishly, I wish he were here. But I know I would not have done the things I've done if he were. I'd be a totally different person. I would take life for granted. I would not appreciate what I have. And I think that's what God does, is he gives us a way to make it all worth it.
Yeah.
And I remember, sometimes we tell people or we ask people, if you could, even if you knew it were going to end poorly, like, would you do it all again? And yes, I would. I want the good times and all that. And I just think back on so many things that went wrong, and I shudder to think about if I'd said no. If I'd said no when God first called me to adoption, what that would have changed. And that right now is probably the one thought that would bring me to my knees. And thank God I listened.
Yes. Yes.
So there is definitely, beauty in the brokenness, and I do think God tries to show us. And so I think the real blessing is when we're really just willing to see it.
Right. Right. And that comes from full surrender. Because until we're fully surrendered, we can't see what he's trying to show us, and we can't allow him to put the pieces back together. He when we are broken like that, he puts us back together with his grace. So kintsugi in Japan is the art of putting broken pottery back together. They put it back together with gold. But if you think about the gold,
That's my work logo.
Oh,
I use.
wow, okay.
Yep.
Well, if you think about the gold, when God puts us back together, he's filling our cracks with his grace.
Yep.
He is giving us forgiveness. The grace is what is now holding us back together, and we become it. Well, back up, and instead of disguising the cracks,
Right.
he highlights
Right.
them, and we are then able. His light and grace is able to shine through so that others can see him. But when we allow him and surrender and allow him to put us back together into a whole piece, all of the shattered pieces, your depression, your anxiety, the loss of your dad, the trauma as a kid, the failed marriage,
Yep.
not having kids on your timeline, and you allow him to pull all those pieces back together and put them back together with his grace and his gold, now you are more beautiful and more valuable in the kingdom. You just said, now I work in the foster
Yep.
care system in the courts.
Yep.
You haven't saved one baby. You've probably saved hundreds, maybe thousands. And the ripple effect of that, you don't even know. It is for generations to come that you have been able, God has used you to save others because you said yes.
Yep.
And he brought you a man that said yes with you. The timing wasn't right the first time.
Yep.
But then it was right, and he said yes with you, and together, y'all are a force to not be reckoned with. And you're allowing God now to take and use what was once broken and is now a more valuable piece. So when they put the pottery pieces back together, they sell them for double and triple their original cost. Have you ever tried to buy a piece? They're expensive.
Not authentic, but
They're
I will
expensive.
say that each of my children has a piece.
Do they?
So that they know the story
That's
and they
amazing.
understand that that's what life is.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that. And being transparent with your kids is really important. So I'm glad that you're like, no, I'm not making something up. No, I'm going to tell them. I truly believe that is one of the pillars of the relationship with my kids. Despite my story and a failed marriage with their dad, they trust me and they love me and they come to me with issues, and it's
Sure.
because I was transparent, and I fully believe that parents have got to be more transparent with their
Absolutely.
kids.
You know,
But
I mean, I just remember always thinking the people, kind of like I said, so going full circle, I get on campus and I see these people who have it all together, right?
you think they do.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
they
you
don't.
always think, when you're younger, you get to that next stage and you say, they're going to have it all together. They're going to have it all figured out. When I get to college, when I'm a lawyer,
Yeah.
when I'm a mom, and I'm 45 and I still look around and say, where's the mom?
We're still figuring it out.
Where is the mom? Who's filling my stocking?
Right. Right.
Because
Yeah.
they're still,
It wasn't until a couple of years ago that my husband finally caught on that my stocking was the only one not being filled.
we are very intentional about that. But I mean, I go to a grocery store and I think, I need to find a mom who can tell me what I need to put in this. And I'm thinking, I'm the mom.
You're the mom.
I'm supposed to know how to make this,
Yes.
But we never, we grow up and realize that no one has it together.
Yep.
And I think that there's so much power in vulnerability.
Yes. Yes. And that is the whole purpose
Yep.
of this.
Yep.
Beautifully Broken. God said, you're going to tell your story. You're going to be transparent about it because it's going to help others. But then you're going to have others tell their story because their story is different than yours and it's going to reach people that you can't reach. And so, so I just want to take this time to say thank you for sharing your story. There's more to your story, and it seems like that with each person that comes on. I'm like, oh, there's a part 2 here. Oh, there's a part 2 here. So maybe I can pack all this up and come to God's country next time.
Yes.
And, we can do it over in your neck of the woods. But thank you for being vulnerable and being transparent and sharing your story with others, because I'm sure that there are lots of other women out there that are ready to give up. They feel like what they their hopes and dreams are not on God's timeline.
Yep.
And you are a product of just being faithful and watching, and God can still perform miracles. So.
Well, I will say I was not always that product. And so even if, the people who aren't, they're not there yet, that God is still using them, and just not to forget that, when I was ugly crying about never being a mom, my son was being born. So, there are so many times I kept hearing, "Oh, ye of little faith,"
Yep.
and he was working. He was working the whole time.
He's always working. We just have to be patient.
Yep.
And be still.
And you never know; it's right around the corner. You cannot quit because it is right around the corner.
Yes, that's good. Well, thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.